So as of this afternoon, there are 3 more defensive coordinator candidates that the Packers are trying to interview. One of them they have already interviewed. 2, they have sought permission from the other teams. This morning it came out about Brandon Staley being interviewed. I already covered that one. But now I want to look at these 3 other candidates who the Packers are trying to interview. First off here, we have from Ian Rappaport. The Packers have interviewed rising Broncos DBs coach Christian Parker for their vacant defensive coordinator job. Source said, just 32 years old, Parker has impressed. So Christian Parker, only 32 years old, very young coach. He was in Green Bay in 2019 and 2020. He was a defensive quality control coach. So he already has experience and some kind of relationship with LaFleur, considering he was here in both 2019 and 2020. And then for the past 3 seasons, he has been the Broncos defensive backs coach. 1 year under Vic Fangio, 1 year under Ejiro Evero, 1 year under Vance Joseph. So 3 different coaches during that time. And here's a quote from Vance Joseph from the Denver Post about Christian Parker, who says this: "He's sharp, man. He's a star. He's a great partner to work with. As a veteran coach, I've coordinated for about 7 years now. Speaking with Christian every day and bouncing ideas off him from what he's done with Fangio and guys in the past has been fun. We're making changes and growing off what they did last year. He's smart. He works his butt off, and his players love playing for him. He's a star." And so I think when you're looking to get a defensive coordinator, you want to find someone that players love to play for. Another interesting note, he is also interviewed with the Patriots. So this is a guy that clearly around the league is seen as a potential prospect who can come in and lead a defense. And when we look at the difference between Staley and this guy, Christian Parker, of course, Staley has that experience. He's been a defensive play caller, whereas Christian Parker has not. And it's not to say one is necessarily better than the other, considering Staley had 1 really good year with the Rams, 3 not so good years with the Chargers. Here we have Christian Parker, who you don't really know what he's going to be as a defensive coordinator, at least from an outside perspective. We don't know. We have no history to look at of him calling plays. And so the potential's there, and it just comes down to Matt LaFleur and the Packers deciding who they think is going to lead this Packers defense to being the best they can be. Next we have here from Mike Garofalo. The Packers requested permission to interview Bills linebacker coach Bobby Babich for their defensive coordinator job, source says. Babich, who recently interviewed with the Giants for the same role, will meet with Green Bay. So another guy who has not had experience as a defensive coordinator. He was the Bills' assistant DB coach in 2017, the Bills' safety coach from 2018 to 2021, the Bills' linebacker coach in 2022 and 2023. So he's been with the Buffalo Bills for 7 years, and they've had a pretty consistently successful defense in those 7 years. In 5 of his 7 years in Buffalo, they have had a top 10 defense when it comes to yards allowed. So he's been around a lot of success, and you would assume that helps if he were to come in to be the defensive coordinator, to have been around that and sort of seen what there needs to be in place to produce a top-tier defense. He's been around that, experienced that in a few different roles. I was also watching an interview with him. Seems like a very solid communicator. And he is 40 years old, so 4 years younger than Matt LaFleur at 44 years old. And so I think looking at Parker and Babich, both guys somewhat young when it comes to NFL standards, 40 years old. And so the Packers have not officially met with Babich yet, but they have requested permission, so I would assume they interview him sometime soon. And then to end it off here, we have from Todd Archer, Green Bay, the Los Angeles Rams, and Atlanta have sought permission to speak to Cowboys defensive line coach Aden Durde per multiple sources. He has been with the team since 2021, having spent 5 years with Dan Quinn in Atlanta, where he also worked with new coach Raheem Morris. Durde's football journey is unique, having grown up in London. He's played in NFL Europe before joining practice squads in Carolina and KC. He helped train players like F.A. Obata through NFL UK. He was the DC for the London Warriors. So his background is pretty interesting. And the fact that he was with Dan Quinn, not only in Atlanta, but also in Dallas the past 3 years, where in Dallas, past 2 years, they have a top 5 scoring defense. He has been around success, and he's been around Dan Quinn for a long time, so you'd assume that a lot of what Dan Quinn has learned leading defenses has probably transferred over to Durde as well. And to see what the Cowboys pass rush has been able to do the past few seasons, there's no doubt Durde has been a part of that to sort of lead them to being that successful. And he is 44 years old, so the same age as Matt LaFleur. And the difference between all 3 of these guys and Brandon Staley, Staley the only one who has experience calling defensive plays. But I think if you're LaFleur, if you're the Packers, you're looking at every avenue trying to see like who is the best solution, the best answer here. And I think that all three of these guys are somewhat young. They have experience around, successful defenses. And so honestly, I'm going to be curious to see who the Packers select. I have no idea who Matt LaFleur is going to choose. And I think that bringing in someone young, someone who has not yet been a defensive coordinator, could be a solid solution. And it just comes down to the Packers, figuring out, is this guy good enough to come in and lead a defense? But that is the most recent news. If you want more Packers content like this and you want to stay up to date with all Packers defensive coordinator interviews, all things like that, feel free to subscribe down below. You can follow me on Instagram, LukeBeller3. I post on there occasionally as well. And Twitter, Luke_Beller. That's it for this one, and I'll see you guys next time.